Hello, it's me. I've popped in because I have a feeling that there's quite a bundle of us that are struggling today with the feelings of the pain and the loss and the separation and all that goes with being estranged. And so I've come in to talk about that bit and see if some of the words and some of the things that I say bring a little bit of reassurance, comfort, understanding, maybe let go of some of the fear of being swept away by these feelings. And, my own journey into the loss, the profound loss of being estranged and losing my family and dealing with all of that, took me on quite a journey into learning about me, learning about the levels of sadness that I could allow myself to feel, and dealing with the fear of these enormous feelings that would come sometimes without any warning, and that bringing a new understanding to the phrase of prostrate with grief. And I can't sugarcoat it, it really is a difficult process to move through. And it's easy for me to say that it passes, and the truth of it is that it does. And it's the fear of the feelings that we feel. And there's quite a number of bits of information around that the trauma that we feel, it stirs up the trauma of all sorts of things from our childhood, from our backgrounds, from all sorts of things, maybe things that we recognise and things that we don't recognise and don't remember even, and learning to deal with the feelings. There's it's a process, and it's good to have people around you that love you and can understand, and sometimes that isn't available. I was very much left on my own, and looking back, I think that was part of my journey, was to deal with this on my own. And I remember in one particular time when I was just so lost, and I reached out to a sister and she couldn't be there for me, and it really hit me that I was on my own with this fear, this pain, this overwhelming sensation of, I was more consumed with the feelings I was feeling than rather with the situation and thinking about my daughters, etc. An absolute sense of loneliness and nobody caring, and even not knowing how to deal with myself, and I was on medication for quite some time, and that took the edge off, because in the early days, the intensity of it, I didn't have any tools to deal with the intensity of the feelings that I was feeling. They were like nothing else on earth that I'd ever experienced, these sort of like huge pits of loss, and like not being able to function, not eating, not sleeping, restless, anxious, deep, just couldn't be bothered to do anything. And when I did try to do something, it feeling like there was no point to it, so the dark night of the soul, as some people call it. And slowly I reached out, I started to read, I reached out to people that I didn't know, that I trusted. People would come and say, can I help, and it wasn't doctors really, it wasn't doctors, and it wasn't, just let me disappear into the kitchen a minute. I'm just turning the oven off. Talk about being in the moment. I'd put a piece of toast on and forgotten that I'd put a piece of toast on. So the smoke alarm would have go off shortly if I wasn't careful. So getting back to my point, which was, it wasn't always doctors, it wasn't the medical people that actually gave me the tools and the insights into myself. They were just doing prescriptions, you know. That's what doctors and medics do. And it's more of the, what I would call the people who, the healers, the more I turned to the healers, you know, the people who were doing acupuncture or going to circles and sharing my story in circles, and other women who could hold me whilst I sobbed and or was angry, you know, and it was those arenas where I really became more competent in managing these overwhelming feelings. And slowly and surely I got myself off the medicine and was able to not be scared anymore of these strong emotions that were running through me. The grief is she's a powerful ally into healing his grief. She can feel like she's your enemy at some point, you know, and there's this turning away and trying to blot her out and trying to obliterate the feelings with alcohol and food, and this sort of trying to distract ourselves from actually feeling what our body is wanting to feeling, which is this sense of huge loss, which is all wrapped up in these sensations that come through our body. And, you know, it's, like I say, it's a journey, and now these days, you know, they're not as intense, they're not as prolific, you know, they're more spaced out. They come sometimes and I understand them now, you know, and I can lay on the floor and sob and sort of heave and keen and make noises, and I don't scare myself anymore with that level of pain that I'm feeling, you know. And it, for me, like being human is all about feeling. That's what being human is. We're feeling beings, you know, and most of us don't have the education or the articulation to process them, understand them, recognise them even. And we search outside of ourselves for meanings. Now we've got a meaning. We've been dumped, we've been rejected, we've been alienated, we've been betrayed, all those things that we feel when we've been cut off out of our children's lives. And those feelings are really strong, you know, and sometimes you can't really understand where they've come from or why they're here, and I've got on my YouTube channel, I've got a process called the Peace Process, and it's a way of getting into the body and helping to recognise these feelings. I see them now, feelings, as like entities that live within me, and they get stirred sometimes and they need a little bit of an outlet. You know, they're a bit like small children, they need a bit of attention. And sometimes I'm too busy, and sometimes I can't be bothered, and sometimes it's inconvenient and I sort of push them away. But they come back later, I've noticed this. So sometimes they demand my attention right now, right in this minute. And so I have to surrender to that and do what I need to do, which is usually lay on the floor and sob, you know. And then over the years, I've got more practiced at that, and like I say, I'm just not so scared anymore of these overwhelming feelings of grief. And people think they're depressed, and I think doctors and everybody and we ourselves get mixed up between depression and grief. And there is a difference in them. You know, depression is different. It feels the same, but there's a subtle difference to when you're in a bereavement. And have no doubt this is a bereavement. If you're in the first few months, even years of this, it's a bereavement, and it's not one that's tidy, because other things come along, like weddings and our children having relationships with other people, and they get married and they have babies. So or they'll reach out to you and then step away again. So there's this ongoing sense of it being some sort of protracted, complicated bereavement. And it stirs us up. It's really difficult. For me, I think, well, it has been the most difficult thing I've ever had to deal with. And I think for the majority of us, it is. And some people would say, and some people who've had a death of their child have said that this is far more difficult to navigate. So that tells you a lot, doesn't it? It would be true for everybody. Some people will, I can't say prefer, but find that estrangement is less painful than the death of a child. But others have said that it's more painful to navigate. So if this is you today, and you feel that you are lost at sea, explore how you can be with yourself when you're going through this. Most of us just want to run away from the feelings, but actually they follow us. And they seem to get louder. That was my experience, till I actually had to surrender to them. And there's books and there's videos and there's people speak of this, you know, you can find them out and explore how to handle your feelings. And then actually what I've found is it's very empowering to be able to recognise them, be with them, honour them, express them, just be with them, you know, and I've created spaces where I can be with them, you know, music and lights and space and pillows for pounding on, and I have got somebody who stands by me and just witnesses me, so that's really helpful. You know, when you get witnessed, most of us hide our grief away, but there's something really lovely in going to pieces and somebody being there and ready to scoop you up and hug you after you've finished. And that very rarely is a family member. It's usually somebody who is skilled in holding space. So if you find good space holders and you can access them in your moments of deepest, darkest, loneliest grief, then that's really helpful. So I hope that helps. I will put the clip of my YouTube channel little video on peace process in the comments underneath here. And I'm sending you my love and inspiring you to remember that this too shall pass. As awful as it is, it does go away. And it might return. And it's all skewed up with feelings from the past that we've had about our anxiety and all that sort of stuff. And then once you learn your own grief process, your own grief song, how you do it, it doesn't scare you anymore. And then you can stand in the storm and acknowledge it for what it is, and then do what you need to do, and then step back into life again. So I love you lots, and thinking of you. Lots of love. Bye for now. Bye.